Yep, looks like we're good to go. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're going to continue with the open session of the NHGRI Advisory Council meeting. We have 4 concept presentations that we will run through in the next couple of hours. For each one of these concepts, one of the NHGRI staff members will give a presentation followed by a discussion with council, and then I will ask for a vote, hopefully to approve each of the concepts, and we'll march our way through them. So the first one today is the concept entitled Supporting Talented Early Career Researchers in Genomics. Lisa Chadwick is a program director in the Division of Genomic Sciences. She will present the concept to you. Over to you, Lisa. Yes.
Okay, so today I'm presenting a new concept for a program that's intended to help support genomics researchers at early stages of their independent careers. So we know that researchers in early career stages face particular challenges in obtaining funding. These are graphs I took from a presentation that Larry Tabak gave to the advisory committee to the director meeting back in 2017. And even though the data on this chart stops in 2015, I don't think the trend has really changed much since then. What you can see here on the left is the number of researchers applying for funding, that's the x-axis, continues to increase every year, even though the number of successful applicants stays pretty constant. And this graph on the right shows that the proportion of those awards that go to those at late career stages, which they define as age 60 plus, that's the blue line, has been going up steadily for the last 25, 30 years, while those at mid and early career stages, that's the green and red lines, are declining. And so this is something obviously that we want to help change. So NHGRI supports early career researchers in a number of different ways. First, early stage investigators or ESIs are always welcome and encouraged to apply for R01s, R21s, and R03s through the parent announcements. I also want to remind any early career researchers out there watching this council meeting right now that program directors are here to help you as you start that application process. So don't hesitate to contact us when you're considering applying for something. We also have released or participate in a number of more targeted announcements, including those that are listed here. One example of one of those more targeted announcements was the Genomic Innovator Award. NHGRI released that back in 2018. That focuses on early career researchers. This included new investigators, and that's what we define as people who haven't received any significant NIH funding in the past, and ESIs, which is a subset of those who are within 10 years of their terminal degree. Researchers working in all areas within the mission of NHGRI were able to apply to this program. Although this was targeted at an early career stage, there wasn't really a specific focus on career development in the application or the RFA. One unique feature of this RFA was that there was a requirement that the applicant had been actively involved in some sort of consortium or team science environment. And this was both an eligibility criteria and a review criteria. And then finally, this used the R35 mechanism, which is a little different from the more traditional grant mechanisms. It's an investigator-centered mechanism. There are no specific aims. You're supposed to be describing sort of a broad research program, and it's short. It's a 6-page research strategy, so there's not a lot of room even for experimental detail. This program ran for 3 years, and it expired this past fall. We funded a number of really great researchers through this program. These are the people we funded in 2020. They cover a wide range of NHGRI relevant research topics, including technology development, computational genomics, genomic medicine, and pharmacogenomics. We're preparing to fund our final round of Genomic Innovator Awards. In fact, we'll be discussing that tomorrow in the closed session. So in many ways, this program was really successful. We got a strong response every year, especially the last 2 years. So far, we've funded 18 researchers through this program, and as I mentioned, we'll be funding more this year. We also noticed that having this program really helped us increase the overall number of applications that we got from ESIs, and this RFA represented a significant proportion of the awards that we made to ESIs in the years that it was active. So we know that having a targeted program like this does help us achieve our goals of supporting ESIs in our field. But there were also some challenges, I think, with this RFA. The R35 mechanism seemed to be tough at this career stage. So as I mentioned, this is a more investigator-focused grant mechanism, and a lot of what reviewers are looking for is based on the track record of the researcher. But of course, at this early career stage, especially if people who've been working in consortium science for a long time, they probably don't have a huge independent track record yet. And then I mentioned that one intent of this RFA was to help researchers who are starting their independent positions establish their own independent research direction, but there wasn't really much focus on career development, and it wasn't always clear to reviewers how this grant was going to get them there. And then finally, the consortium requirement, we felt limited the potential applicants to the program. We all know that there are a lot of researchers out there who are making a huge impact on the field who really don't meet that criteria. So since we've seen that these targeted announcements help us fund ESIs, we're bringing a concept today for a successor program, which we're calling Supporting Talented Early Career Researchers in Genomics. Again, this focuses on early career stage individuals, but specifically early stage investigators. We're continuing to allow applications within all areas of research within the NHGRI mission. To address that question about career development, we added some aspects that will put a stronger focus on that in this RFA. Most notably, we're going to ask the applicants to form an advisory panel that will help them build their network and will provide career advice and mentoring to them as they're getting their career going. We also plan to hold an annual grantee meeting that will help this group of grantees form sort of a cohort. They'll be able to discuss research and other career topics. We also decided to broaden the eligibility by eliminating that consortium requirement. And we're going to use the R01 mechanism for this, which is more project-centered, and it's a more traditional format that both applicants and reviewers are used to. This is going to be a 3-year RFA. There will be one application due date per year. We'll be issuing 5-year R01 awards from this. And we have a $2 million set aside each year for competing awards. So now I'm interested to hear your feedback and thoughts on the concept. I think maybe Rafa or Lisa want to start.
Sure. I'll begin. I really like this idea, and I really like the fact that it's focused on researchers in genomics. I like from an ELSI perspective, which I somewhat represent. I think that even in the name broadens this and is welcoming to those in ELSI research on genomics. I had 2 questions, and maybe it goes to the scope of what's expected from applicants. There is, in what I read, mention of looking at their previous leadership roles. And I just wonder if that would be potentially off-putting to early career applicants, depending on what's meant by leadership role. But if it's leadership of a scientific project, if it's leadership in the field, frankly, either of them could be potentially problematic for those who are really within 5 or 10 years of their degrees. And then I really also like the plan for the a career development support that you've included here, but had a specific question about the advisory committee providing consultation and feedback on the research program. And I wondered if that, just the word program could be shifted back to project, because it keeps, again, it's a little bit more limited in scope, but maybe you intended the broader scope of kind of having a whole research program and the development of an ongoing program. But maybe just clarifying that in terms of what your expectation would be could be helpful.
Okay, yeah, that's both good, really good feedback. I think in terms of the question about, displaying leadership, I think what we were thinking about is we were planning on requesting recommendation letters from previous mentors or other people that people have worked with. Some of that could be, taking leadership over a committee or a whatever. But I totally get your point about that and how that can be off-putting for people who, even though they probably are doing those things, they don't necessarily see themselves when they read that text. So that's really good feedback. Thank you.
And Lisa, the issue of project versus program?
Oh, that's a good point too, and we can change that too. I didn't really mean anything specific by that, so that was just a word choice.
Okay, Raphael, comments from you?
Thank you, Lisa, for that presentation. I want to just encourage NHGRI to continue these types of programs. I think that you will benefit greatly from supporting the next generation of innovators in genomics, which will not all come from consortia. Probably most will come from just independent research groups. And I think that you want to foster this as much as possible. So this is a great start. My only critique is that you only have 5. I would like to see many more. One thing I worry about is that as an investigator, you won't feel like there's a funding stream that's stable going forward. So some might wonder why bother if it's so few and so hard to get these. I'll go to some other institute or look for other sources of funding. So that would be my only critique, is that I would like to see more than 5. Maybe 50, just to throw out a number, and also start thinking about what comes next. So these are currently SIs, but they won't be after they get this one. So then what will they? Well, you want to also have a funding stream for them as they go forward as investigators that prefer to have their own investigator initiated projects. Mm-hmm. The other thing I liked was that you are flexible with the plan for mentorship. I think that's great. I've seen other examples where the mentorship plan is too constrained, and it rarely works. You never know who your mentors are going to be at the beginning. You find them as you go. So I would encourage you to be as flexible as possible with that, and maybe even offer to help as an institute for those that can't find anybody, or the ones that they selected didn't work out because they're too busy or aren't a good match. But mm-hmm. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I agree. We would like to fund as many early stage investigators as we can, but I do take your point that when you tell the community the amount of money that you're putting into a program, even though I think, as you've seen with the Genomic Innovator, we funded many more applications than we actually had a set aside for. But I understand, I really take your point to heart about that. And then the other question that I think you had was about, what do they do after this? I would not imagine that they would, they can renew this grant because it's just going to be an R01, but they would do it through the parent announcement, which I think is sort of the standard for most researchers after that sort of early stage investigator status.
Okay, I have Steve and then Mark. Steve, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I think this is a really great program. And Lisa, thanks for a clear presentation on it. A couple of points. One is I agree with the other comments that removing the consortium requirement will increase your breadth of applicants by quite a bit. And in fact, the sort of mantra of genomic innovator seems more appropriate actually for this. I don't know what you're going to title it, but that is a good concept, the genomic innovator, I think, for someone's early career. I hope, since this is now going to be an R01, just one thing you might want to think about managing is the issue about preliminary data. These are young, you didn't mention that, but maybe you have something to say about that.
Right, that's a great question. So early stage investigators, of course, can struggle with having sort of the level of preliminary data that a more established investigator would have in an application. That's something that we try to deal with in review, of course, even in standard reviews, by clustering them and reminding them that these are early stage investigators. And we would do the same in this. This would be an NHGRI convened review panel where we would be able to remind them about that. But we do also have the ability to write things into the RFA that sort of relax the requirement for preliminary data. Now, I also mentioned one of the other programs that we participate in, that's the Stephen Katz ESI R01 program. That is a program that specifically requires no preliminary data at all. So there is actually a way for people to come in without preliminary data, without any. I think we would probably not do that, especially because there's already a program that sort of fills that niche. But I take your point, and we'll consider that when we put the RFA together.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Mark, go ahead.
So I also am very supportive of the program. And I just had a question or a comment on a bit of language. So in the concept document, it indicated that the applicant should form an external advisory committee. And I'm wondering if that really has to be external to the applicant's institution. If they have good mentors there, can their advisory committee include some local folks as well, which seems like would have the benefit of having their local and their external mentors be on the same page in the advice they're giving.
Yeah, no, I think we would be flexible with that. I think it's good to get a diversity of opinions from people that are mentors, but I understand that people are definitely going to have people at their own institution that they're going to want to include in that. And I don't see that we would have any problem with that.
Thanks.
Hal, go ahead.
So I'm also very supportive of this program. I noticed that innovation wasn't specifically mentioned as a review criteria for this award. I'm wondering, are you seeking creativity, innovation, perhaps high risk, high impact work from a young investigator? And the second thing is, will there be a limit on how much other funding someone can have and still be eligible for this award?
Okay, so the question about innovation, I mean, I think we didn't call that out specifically. That's, of course, one of the review criteria in an R01, the standard review criteria for an R01. And so I would expect that we would do that here. But you're right. No, we didn't specifically say highly innovative, although we always want highly innovative. Your second question, I totally blanked on what it was. Can you just repeat it?
Yeah, the second question was, is there some limit about how much all other funding someone can have and still be eligible?
Right. So in order to be eligible to apply for this, you have to have early stage investigator status. And the only way that you can have early stage investigator status is if you have not been the PI of an R01 level grant at the NIH. So these investigators could have a K99, or they could have an R21 or an R03 either. But once you get an R01 level thing, your ESI status goes away.
There is no numerical cap. Correct, Lisa?
It's not, no, but I mean, it's just the kind of award. Right. So anything really bigger than an R21, you would lose your ESI status and you wouldn't be eligible for this.
Right. It's hard to get rich on R03s.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions for Lisa? All right, can I get a motion to approve this concept? You have to unmute your microphone. There we go. Okay. And I saw multiple hands, so I'll take one of you as a second. And okay. I'm going to ask all in favor to raise your hand and just hold it there for a couple of seconds. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thank you very much. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, thank you.
Move along.